Good morning from Kansas City. Welcome to SportsBeat Live. It's the weekly conversation about the Chiefs with the folks who cover the team for the Star and with you. Please send us your questions and comments and join in the conversation. So, hey, I know everybody's still getting used to Fridays, even Fridays at 9:30 a.m. Even we're getting used to and adjusting to the new time. And I know that sometimes when our producer Beth sends out the link to join the show, that's the first time I realize that maybe we're doing a show today. So I always appreciate Beth with her links. So good morning, guys.
Good morning, Blair. Good morning, Blair, lads.
Hey, I get a little trip down memory lane for you here. Does anybody remember the last time the Chiefs were in last place this late in the season?
15, right?
I believe that's the case, but just to be sure, we have some video evidence of this that Beth is going to roll right now.
Everybody, it's Therese Paylor, Kansas City Star, Blair Kirkhoff, Sam Mellinger. Posted up here in beautiful Minneapolis after the Chiefs' 16-10 loss. And yeah, there's a little bit of background, ambiance here. Bad season. It's gone to hell. And I don't think a lot of people would have expected 1-5 at this point. I mean, you could have given me a lot of scenarios, and I wouldn't expect it 1-5. But you know what? We're always here. We're always giving opinions. We're still covering the team. That's what we do, right, baby? So, guys, let's go through our 3 and out. Give me your one major takeaway from this big loss.
I missed that guy, man. Damn.
That was great.
That was great.
That was the game. Donald Stevenson accidentally stripped. Was it Charkandrick
West? Yeah.
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 Game-winning drive. They were playing that game at the Gopher Stadium. I forgot what they call it, but I think Vahe was in Toronto at that point.
Yeah, I was in Toronto, and I think you guys were about to hop up there. I can't remember exactly how we did it. We flew into a funny airport about what was it called? The Kitchener Airport, like a 4-gate airport, about an hour outside of Toronto. Saving the company money while you guys were luxuriating at that loss.
Find us by the trash can.
That's exactly right. That's what that was the first year I think that the Star did post-game videos from the games. That entire show, we only played 40 seconds, but the entire show only lasted about 5.5 minutes, and it was just a sort of a quick take on the game, and let's get back to writing stories. But I do remember we always kind of look around for a place to set up, and Sam was the one that identified the trash can.
Seems on brand.
Yeah, this team's playing like garbage. Let's emphasize that. So,
I was just going to ask who might have framed up that look. Need I have?
But indeed, the Chiefs went to 1-5 with a loss. With that game in Minnesota, dropped to, and we're in last place in the AFC West, as they are now on a 2-game losing streak, coming off the loss to the Chargers. Look, the world's a different place now than it was then, and things got better immediately for the Chiefs after that game. I did listen to that entire 5-minute clip, and we were a lot of who are they going to are they going to be in the Jared Goff sweepstakes at the end of the year? And the Chiefs ended up winning 10 in a row, right? And finishing second to the Broncos and winning a playoff game. So things turned around pretty quickly for the Chiefs. And look, this Chiefs team is still pretty much all the main pieces are back from the 2-time Super Bowl participants, Kansas City Chiefs. So this is a different world, isn't it, Sam Mellinger? We're not talking about the same thing here.
No, yeah. I mean, that team had a lot to prove, and it did. And they the schedule worked out for that team a little bit. They played the Steelers, if I remember right, the next game, and the Steelers were on their like seventh string quarterback that week.
Right.
But they were able to build some momentum there. But this group, like that group, the Chiefs used to be a team where A, B, C, D, and sometimes E, F, and G had to go right, and then things can move a little bit. Then they can look really good. And this group, it seems more like A, B, and C have to go wrong for them to lose a game, and they've done A, B, and C, and sometimes D, E, and F these last 2 weeks. So I think like I always got the sense with those old teams that God, they just need this, and this, And this team, I think all the answers are in that room. I really do believe that, despite what we've seen the last 2 weeks. It's a weird first 3 games because they really are not that many plays away from being 3-0. And they're really not that many plays away from being 0-3. And so, maybe 1-2 is what they've earned. But I just don't believe that this group has gone like completely complacent, and is just like, screw it. We've 3 straight AFC championship games, blah, blah, blah. I think this group still wants more. And so, I'm going to be surprised if they don't play. The Eagles are the worst opponent they've played so far, right? But I'll be surprised if the Chiefs don't look better than ever this weekend in Philly.
The Eagles are the first opponent the Chiefs are going to play that I don't think has a chance to make the playoffs. A couple things. In 2015, 5 of the first 6 teams the Chiefs played that year made the playoffs and helped produce that 1-5 record. And very few of the teams they played after that did. But so in Sam's alphabets here, A, B, C, and D, one of those is a few of those involve the defense. And this is a good place to for some injuries, because the only real significant injury right now is on the defensive side in the secondary, isn't it, Herbie?
Yeah, you've got 2 of them. You've got Rashad Fenton, who's still in the concussion protocol. He left week 3's game shortly before halftime and didn't return, so he hasn't practiced all week. Shavarius Ward, who was inactive last week with a quad injury, has put in limited practices the past 2 days, and the Chiefs need him out there because they had that swarming ability to defend against the pass, and they're going to need to swarm against Jalen Hurts. Frank Clark with the hamstring injury, he's been limited the past 2 days, was inactive last week as well, but he's another. So they need him back out there as well.
Really enjoyed that on a couple different levels, guys. I just want
to. Sam Mack, you wrote about the defense this week, and Tyrann Mathieu's thoughts on this. I got to tell you, I saw read an article late this week that really praised what the Chargers, their offensive coordinator, and Justin Herbert were able to do to the Chiefs in terms of kind of picking up the tempo, speeding up the offense a little bit, especially after they crossed midfield. And there was a lot of finger pointing by the Chiefs, not after the play, but before the play, right? You need to be here, you need to be here. And the Chargers took full advantage of that. But what did Tyrann Mathieu have to say about pass defense this week?
Yeah, first of all, I can't believe we watched that clip and nobody commented on Melly's look. He looked like the guy that was ready to fix the computer problems that I'm having. Now he's dressed like he's in a Ford commercial or something. But Mathieu pointed out the fact that they're having trouble pre-snap alignments, and you've actually seen that play out after the play, and you've seen it play out, which you just mentioned, Blair, which is before the play. The one that came to mind that I led with after the play was the play in Baltimore where Hollywood Brown, there's nobody within 15 yards of him. And the pass is low, the pass is late, and it doesn't even matter because there's nobody within 15 yards of him. And there's clearly a missed assignment on that play. In the Chargers game, on the 2-point conversion, there's a play where Tyrann Mathieu is literally running across the back of the line of scrimmage and basically saying nobody is guarding Mike Williams on this play. And he sprints across there, and by the time he gets there, there's still nobody on him. The ball's a 2-point conversion. There's a touchdown play that Sam mentioned after the game last Sunday where Austin Eckler is wide open. Anthony Hitchens isn't lined up in time. And they did pinpoint the fact that the Chargers were hurrying to the line of scrimmage, and maybe they didn't feel like they had enough time to sub, or maybe they didn't feel like they had enough time to get in their defense, but they've got to call something. And Tyrann Mathieu has put this on the players, that it's not the coaches not putting them in the right spots, that the players have to communicate better. And I think he was specifically on one of those talking about the secondary. He mentioned the secondary and once that those are explosive plays when you don't get lined up correctly. So like I mentioned in the article, the good news about this is that's a correctable flaw. There's other things with this defense, specifically with the pass rush, that I do wonder what's the answer for this in that locker room. But that pre-snap adjustments, that's a correctable thing.
So what's happening is the Chiefs are getting hammered in the red zone, right? Is it 12 touchdowns and 13 trips, 12 touchdowns and 1 field goal and 13 trips in the red zone, and a new and delightful problem, fourth down defense that the Chargers converted the 4th and 9 against the Chiefs to set up the keep alive what turned out to be the game-winning drive. And so these are, kind of issues that, well, the red zone thing is, that's to me almost unexcusable, because the Chiefs identified that after last season, and that was supposed to be a big emphasis coming into this year, and they can't stop it, right? They're not the worst in the NFL, by the way, at this. They're like 3 teams below them where opponents have scored every time. They have touchdowns every time they've been in the red zone. But
so they have improved. They have improved this year, then, yeah.
Right. They're not 32nd. But this fourth down defense is going to have to. They're just going to have to rise up and take that as a challenge or an insult or whatever it takes to feel the disrespect and make a stop. But that didn't happen against the Chargers. Didn't happen against the Ravens. I think we're going to see more of it from opponents this year. What do you guys think?
Blair, there's one little commonality in all the things we're talking about. And maybe the fourth down thing applies here, because it's not like it's really the first time it's happened. It's happening more. But you're talking about red zone. You're talking about turnovers. You're talking about communication. All things that they've been talking about. And it doesn't seem like there's really great explanations for why they haven't been able to resolve them, particularly when you think about things like communication, right? As Tyrann put it yesterday, if you don't get that pre-snap stuff right, then I mean you're lost, to start the play. So my only point on this is I feel like we can think some of these things are fixable, but it's a little mysterious to me why they're not getting fixed when they've already been getting addressed.
Ron checks in from Germany. Thanks for checking in, Ron. How close is this D to being a results-oriented Sutton 2.0 D? I go back to the 2018 defense, which was an adventure, to say the least. It was, it was a season in which the Chiefs had to outscore opponents, and I think this Chiefs team is entirely capable of outscoring opponents when they don't commit 4 turnovers in a game, or 2 very ill-timed turnovers, as they did against the Ravens. That Chiefs 2018 team, which was Mahomes' first year as a starter, wasn't a mistake-prone team. Neither was the 2019 or 2020 Chiefs teams, not to this extent. I looked this up the other day, that in Andy Reid's first 8 seasons with the Chiefs, they had only committed more turnovers than opponents in one of those years. The Chiefs have been fantastic at ball security and good decision-making when it comes to turnovers. This team, at least these last 2 games, has just been bizarre in the way that they've been careless and sloppy with the ball. So I know we just transitioned basically from defense to offense, but what is going on with this Chiefs offense and the miscues? Melly, what do you think? Is this is a fixable issue, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, I know people don't want to hear this, but because he especially fumbled 2 weeks in a row, right? And not that there's a good spot for a fumble, but in really bad spots. But that's not in Edwards-Hilaire's like history, and I think that matters. 2 in a row matters. I'm not discounting that completely, but this isn't a guy that just has a history of doing that. Same with Tyreek Hill. That was his, I think, second fumble in 5 seasons. So I don't think that that's something that you have to freak out about. The interceptions, I mean, that was the worst play of Patrick Mahomes' career. And I get that that's a different standard than a lot of quarterbacks, but that interception in Baltimore was it was a terrible idea, poorly executed. And the one, the first one was, bounces off a guy's shoulder pass. I think Marcus Kemp has to make that catch. It's a less than perfect pass, but he's got to make that catch. And then the other one, there was a little bit of a miscommunication. I think that was the risk reward calculus. I think the quarterback was pushing it maybe a little bit further than would have been advisable. Because correct me if I'm wrong, it was a tie score at that point.
Yeah. Yep. So, Chiefs had the ball with it. That's why I thought the Chiefs would win at that point. They had the ball. I think it was 24-all, right? And and so this is Chiefs time, right?
Yeah.
What we've seen the last few years.
I don't think that was the best decision, but I do think that there probably is a sense there, right? That of needing to push it a little bit and getting a little bit frustrated and doing some 2018 things. And they often work, right? They often work. But, in 2019, second half of the season, when he came back from that injury, I just thought it was just like a machine. I mean, it was still spectacular plays. He still had the jump pass in Nashville and some other things like that, but there wasn't a lot of riskiness to it. And somehow they need to get back to that, but it is sort of a not cohesive, but just a complementary with an E kind of thing. The defense needs to be better. He needs to get used to the offensive line, all these other things. It's not simple, but I do think that, again, that just all the answers are in the room, that they can do this.
Charlie says they haven't been stopped on offense, even against decent opponents. Absolutely right. As long as they turn the ball over, they should beat every team they play. I tend to agree with that. I mean, I think they should be favored against every team they play. Terrence says it reminds him of the Lions game without the W. Yeah, I thought about that too. But in the thing about that Lions game is the Chiefs got turnovers. They took the ball away. I think there were 5 turnovers like in the third quarter of that game, like 3 by the Chiefs and a couple by the Lions. Including
that 100-yard, whatever that was. Was that a fumble return? Like whatever that was. I mean, you get a play like that.
That was crazy. You're right. Length of the field. Was it Breeland that did that? Yeah.
Yeah, Bashaud Breeland.
Yeah. So I don't. The Mahomes picks to me are the. We just haven't seen this, right? 3 picks in 2 weeks. He's been everybody else does that. He's the player that doesn't do that, and now he's done it. I don't know. And I think it was it Andy Reid? Somebody said this week, it can't change the way you play, right, Vahe? You can't not be Patrick Mahomes and take risks and be somewhat of a gunslinger, and what you've got to you can't rein it in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean he's got to be who he is. I mean that's what makes him special. But part of what makes him special is that slight distinction between being really a gunslinger / reckless versus much more measured calculations that he's making in a microsecond that would take us 20 minutes to think through. And he has I think, incredible knack for that. I think it goes back to everything from vision to awareness. And those things haven't left him. And certainly he doesn't care any less. I think it's just been some game situation moments that have presented themselves in kind of a funny way. I do think that at least the way Patrick laid it out, and he's got really pretty good track record of, I think, being candid on these things. That interception to Kelsey, Patrick committed to throw interception when he's trying to hit Kelsey. He committed to trying to throw the ball right as they have kind of a cue between them that it was exactly the moment where Kelsey thought it the other way. At least that's how I took it. And that's why the ball ended up where it did. I don't know that it wouldn't have been intercepted otherwise, but I think we just need to remember over the course of a long season, of course, we're only in the course of a short season so far, but in the course of a long season, those things should play out a little differently. I think if Patrick, again, continues to learn from what he's just seen, reevaluates the situations, processes it, and just stays the guy he is, I don't think we're going to see a turnover spree from him. I just think it's going to happen in pockets from time to time because every play is different. No matter what, every play still is different.
I think we're seeing a product of his passes. We saw him go through a stretch like this last year where it seems like teams dropped every potential interception they could have had. And now it seems like guys are the Chargers made 2 incredible plays on those interceptions. Statistically, via next-gen stats, Patrick Mahomes is the least aggressive quarterback in the NFL. He's not being more careless, more reckless, anything like that. Vahe explained that Kelsey one perfectly. Obviously, the one in Baltimore was just a bad decision. The one to Kemp, I don't think is on Patrick Mahomes. So I just think all the stats bear out, as well as, of course, the 3 years of history show that this is not going to be a long-lasting thing with Patrick Mahomes. I don't think it's any reason for concern. Like I said, I think he had balls like this last year that he got a little bit lucky. I mean, the Patriots dropped 2 or 3 interceptions in that game, and that was, early in the season as well. These things tend to even themselves out, like Vahe said, over the course of the season. And right now, it seems like every mistake he made is getting picked off.
Okay, Terrence encourages us to move the chains a little bit, and let's talk Josh Gordon here. What do we think, Herbie? This is we've seen something like this before, right? Le'Veon Bell last year. What's the potential impact and the timetable for Josh Gordon?
Gordon is your perfect example of a low risk, high reward type signing. You get this guy who obviously has his issues, well documented issues, coming off of suspension, reinstated, and that's the case what's going on right now. But you want him to absorb the playbook, and that's the key thing for him right now. Is he's on the practice squad, he's not on the active roster, so we're not going to see him unless there's some miraculous elevation Saturday, which I don't think is going to be the case at all. Because even if he were to play this weekend, there's no way in the world that Chiefs can build a game plan or install plays specifically for him because he doesn't understand the language. I think what will help him, though, is, playing for an elite quarterback like Tom Brady. Then he goes to Seattle. They run a version of the West Coast offense up there. He played with Russell Wilson. So for him, it's a matter of absorbing and translating the different terminology. The plays will probably be the same, but it's the terminology that he has to get down. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks. That's probably what I'm thinking. It's going to take him a while to get fully implemented into the offense.
Can he be as effective as Sammy Watkins was in this offense? Or look, Josh Gordon hasn't played a full season. He's only played one once in his career, right? He's 30 years old, and I just don't know what to expect from him. Except I know Patrick Mahomes was excited about the idea of a big-bodied wide receiver, right? And just somebody that can go up and get a reception. I'm curious to see what they have in him. You say 2 or 3 weeks, Herbie? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, for me, the biggest challenge for him is the playbook. We all know it's complex. Everybody who has gone through that playbook says it's complex. We hear wide receivers say it takes them 1 or 2 seasons to fully understand it. So I don't, that's going to be the biggest challenge for him, is understanding what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, Dave Toub told us yesterday he's the number 2 or number 3 wide receiver. God bless that man. That special teams coach interviews.
Yeah, they picked the right one to speak to the media on Sunday after the game, and that's kind of where I wanted to go next. The biggest story of the week, as far as I'm concerned, happened immediately after the game on Sunday, and that's when Andy Reid did not appear in the post-game press conference. And turns out he spent Sunday night in the hospital resting. We do not know to this day exactly what the illness was. It was just described as an illness. I don't. The Chiefs and Andy Reid haven't revealed it. Don't want to reveal it. And look, I know we all have our feelings about medical issues. I'm not. None of us are are keen about sharing information like that. But there was absolutely a sense of concern and worry, and we did address it during the Andy Reid's first press conference on Wednesday. Let's hear what Andy Reid had to say about his illness.
I'm wondering if there's anything you can, or I guess I should say, would be willing to share about what happened after the game and just how you were feeling.
Yeah, I'd probably just skip that. I'll just leave. I'm not much on talking about all that stuff. I wish it would never happen, but it did, and I'm moving on. But I feel great. I appreciate the doctors for taking care of me. I mean, they're phenomenal. So.
Andy, along with what you said, Andy, naturally, we're glad to see you back and healthy. It's not lost on you how concerned people were, and I do wonder is this a sort of episode that makes you have to examine routines at all, or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. You go back and you look at things, but you're asked a lot of questions, so you look at things. But I feel great right now. So, and everybody that's dealt with me is confident that it will continue that way. So, I'm good if they're good, right? They're the experts.
And you were completely at ease coming right back to work on Monday.
I wish I could have gotten a couple more of these, but I'm glad I'm here. Yeah.
One Monday.
Yeah, I know.
So, all right, a couple things before I want Vahe to pick up the conversation, but he didn't look different to me. He didn't sound different, didn't seem different. But gosh, that was absolutely a scare on Sunday.
Yeah, I thought the more the night went along on Sunday, the more concerned I got because there was such a gap in information. And you saw Tyrann Mathieu's tweet that sounded like, I don't know, it just sounded like a very high level of concern, not just a coach had to get, a precautionary evaluation after the game. So that I think at least got me thinking about like, boy, how serious could this be? And now I'm a little conflicted about what to think. I obviously he would get the utmost health care. I would assume it would be no less than a battery or a team of doctors that would sign off on him getting out of the hospital and going back to work. I can't imagine that, Andy just, had the autonomy to just run through stop signs and say, well, I'm working. I just can't believe that would be the case without a medical basis. On the other hand, if it really was something that seems to have gotten floated out there that along the lines of dehydration, why won't anybody just say that publicly? I find that peculiar, and we know that the Chiefs like to keep a tight cordon on things, and we know that Andy, for all his sense of humor, can be a sort of a stoic guy, doesn't want to, show anything beyond the macho in some ways, right? And so all those things go together. But I think the effect is that it, I think, certainly leaves the public guessing and wondering what's really going on with Andy, especially because of the other things that he has to bear.
I think that's exactly right. Like the sort of just lack of information is concerning in some ways. I make an assumption, and we all know what about assumptions, but I feel like if it was just dehydration, if it was just like something pretty minor, I think the Chiefs would have been more vocal about that. So again, I mean, that's a guess, right? Like that's all we can do. But there's just some vibes that make this feel like something to be concerned about, something that they're concerned about.
I wondered what the scene would have been like on the sideline if that game had gone into overtime. And, so the team would have stayed out on the field for another, I don't know, however many minutes it would have taken to decide the game. And this happened immediately, as sometime between the end of the game and in the 10 or 15 minutes that happened after the game. So I think then it would have you'd have had national cameras on Andy Reid and on the Chiefs sideline, and at that point, I'm not sure the everything's all right answer would have sufficed at that point. But anyway, it didn't happen that way, and Chiefs didn't get it to overtime. And again, like I said, I thought Andy Reid was he looked and sounded no different to me on Wednesday than he had any other time, and I suppose that is a good sign. So, hey, we've gone all this way without really talking about the opponent on Sunday. And speaking of Andy Reid, it is there are some connections here, not just Andy Reid, but Travis Kelce as well. So make it. I mean, those will be some TV moments during the broadcast and make it fun on an otherwise, two teams that don't see each other, but every 4 years and every 8 years that it's been 8 years since the Chiefs played in Philadelphia. So, Vahe, take that away. What's at least from a homecoming standpoint, there's something to say about this game.
Blair, I couldn't hear the end of that. Were you asking me?
Yes, I was, Vahe. But that's okay if you want to.
Well, no. The dogs weren't barking for once. I just had a little connectivity thing. Look, it's exciting, I think, because no matter how much they downplay it, Andy back to Philly is a thing, and it's kind of all the more interesting and maybe a little less loaded since each team has won a Super Bowl since Andy left. I mean, I think it might feel different if it were one way or the other, but I think that'll be an element of it. And look, that record is actually pretty meaningful. It's not just his 100th win as the Chiefs coach. It would be the first NFL coach, if I remember correctly, to win 100 games with two different franchises. That's really something. We've seen plenty of NFL coaches have impact with multiple teams, but we haven't seen that. So I naturally look forward to that. I do think we'll have some highlight reel moment of some sort involving the brothers Kelce, whether it's after the game or let's hope for Travis's sake, not during the game with like a Fly Eagles Fly bit that he does and goes back to being 2017 Travis temperamentally.
Herbie, you wrote about the keys to the game. What can the Eagles do? Charlie asks, what can the Eagles do to bother the Chiefs, to hurt the Chiefs?
I think if they take advantage of the Chiefs in the red zone, the Chiefs, as you mentioned earlier, they're 24th in the league or something like that, but they're 93 or 94% touchdown percentage rate is what they're allowing to opponents. And the Eagles enter this game ranked 7th in the league, and their offense does in red zone touchdown percentage at 85%. So if they take advantage of that, and if they force turnovers, and I saw that comment there about Fletcher Cox, because he's right, he is a handful. We're talking about a 6-time Pro Bowler in the middle. This is a game, though, that the Chiefs should win. I'm not worried about the Eagles pulling off something crazy like we've seen these last 2 weeks. The Chiefs should win this game. But if they're going to be competitive, they got to score when they're in the red zone.
How about this stat? The Eagles by far lead the NFL in penalties. So it's been a tough year for Philly on that front. But the other stat that kind of jumped out at me is that Miles Sanders, the running back, 8.9 yards per carry on first downs this year. So rushing defense, something that the Chiefs have, was a massive failure in the first couple of games. Better against the Chargers, but something to keep an eye on this week. I agree with you, though. I think the Chiefs end up winning this game. They break the losing streak. It doesn't get to 1-5 as did Minnesota those many years ago. But both teams enter the game on a 2-game losing streak. I think the Chiefs come out of this thing with the victory. So that'll do it for us today. And really appreciate you sticking with us. And again, just as a reminder, it's going to be Fridays for the foreseeable future. Fridays at 9:30. Please join us in, and we'll be with you post game from Philadelphia as well. So for Herbie, Sam McDowell, Vahe, and Sam Mellinger, and our producer, Beth Welsh, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you in a couple days.